This is Keys to the Shop, episode 435, an Encore episode with Bruce Tulgan on why it's okay to be the boss. Well, hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I am your host for this show, and I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to Keys to the Shop. That is just as easy as hitting that button there that says subscribe, just like that. You could take a moment right now and get that out of the way, because when you do, every episode that we publish, you'll be notified that it is fresh and ready for you to consume, like a bakery of knowledge and insights to help you and your business. There's a lot of episodes that we produce every month on very relevant topics that you don't want to miss, with great guests and deep dives into things that will really encourage you and help you in your journey in professional coffee. So go ahead and subscribe, and also share these episodes on social media. When you hear something that really resonates, go ahead and just share that to your network. That really makes a huge difference. And if you would rate and review Keys to the Shop, give us a 5-star rating over on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. That really helps the show as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Now, I want to let you know that not only is Keys to the Shop a podcast, but it also is a consulting and coaching company. I have had the pleasure of working one-on-one in coaching many hundreds of coffee shop owners and leaders over the years. And I would love to talk with you about how I might be able to help you in your business. Whether you're just starting out in the industry and you need an advocate, you need an advisor along the way to help you avoid needless mistakes in the process of opening, or you already own a coffee shop and you would like to have an assessment of where you are right now, and then some coaching to follow to help you walk through the next steps to level up the operations, your people and culture, and the quality of what you do. It has really been a fantastic journey for me to be able to help so many in these ways. And I would love to have a conversation with you. Go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. Set up a free discovery call with me. We'll talk all about what you've got going on, how Keys to the Shop might be able to help you. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. And I also think if you want to be a part of the Keyholder Coaching Group, which is already launched, we've got our first group meeting right now. It's really great. It's exciting getting to know the business of this cohort of people in this coaching group. If that's something that you're looking for, camaraderie, fellowship with other coffee shop owners, and an environment where there's honesty, insights, and accountability. The new group, another group, is launching come 2024, somewhere around March, and I will be sending out some invites to people who have signed up to be notified before applications officially open. So if you want to be included in Keyholder coaching groups coming up, fairly soon if you think about it, in March of 2024, then go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, one of the things that I am incredibly excited about is the fact that one of my favorite technology companies in coffee, which is Ground Control over at groundcontrol.coffee, is launched a new brewer. So over these many years, Ground Control has been at the forefront of unlocking the potential of coffee with technology that gives you control over range and depth of coffee that has never been seen before. Now, the new brewer is 45% less in cost than the original Cyclops brewer with the Early Bird Special, and it's much shorter. It's 24 inches high, so it's a little bit more sleek on the bar. It's not as tall as the original Cyclops brewer, and it's got 30% higher volume for espresso and cold brew concentrate batches. So you can batch espresso concentrates and cold brew concentrates, and it has cloud connectivity to a smart dispenser that actually tracks all your brewing data as well. So more compact, more capability, less cost, things just keep getting better with the Ground Control brewer, and I hope that you will go to groundcontrol.coffee and learn more about this. Take advantage of that early bird special if you're looking for a powerhouse on the bar that unlocks quality potential and also efficiencies and more profitability channels in your business. Then look up the Ground Control brewer. Go to groundcontrol.coffee for more information. Now, one of the things that we take for granted, I think, in the industry is the idea that certain things are just there and they work and they're making people happy. We can, get distracted by a lot of different shiny things sometimes that take our attention off of those standards, those tried and true things. And one of those foundational elements of the bar is the Barista series from Pacific. This plant-based beverage, this is a performance plant-based beverage, is absolutely at the foundation of how we got to where we are in the industry with plant-based menu items. Their product is created for baristas and tested by baristas, so every product stands up to the heat from steaming, creates amazing texture, and creates an amazing flavor balance in the cup that highlights your coffee and pleases your customer. This is why they're the quintessential and really a great choice for you to use in your cafe for plant-based beverages. Go to pacificfoodservice.com. You can get samples in your store, try all of their products, and see what you like and see how it tastes and see what I mean. I think you're going to be pleased, and so will your customers. So if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages to serve your customers, I believe you need to be using the Barista series from Pacific. Okay, everyone. Well, I am so excited today to be featuring an episode of the show that is a classic episode on It's Okay to Be the Boss by friend of the show, Bruce Tulgan. And Bruce is a prolific producer of content in the form of a podcast called The Indispensables, also in books and white papers on management. Bruce is the founder of Rainmaker Thinking and the author of more than 20 books, including the bestseller It's Okay to Be the Boss, which is the feature of today's episode. There's another one that's a really amazing one, which we also have an episode on, which is called The 27 Challenges That Managers Face. And he is regarded all over the world as a leading authority on management and leadership and as a regular contributor to the Harvard Business Review and many other international publications. And people who know me, who have talked to me and asked me questions about leadership, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, have you read It's Okay to Be the Boss? And the reason why is because in its simplicity lies a lot of power. There's a very common sense approach to how Bruce tackles the problem of what we do as leaders when we shy away from our authority, and truly is kind of an irresponsible way to live our lives as leaders by shying away from it, and how to actually embrace it on the behalf of those that we are commissioned to actually lead. And of course, it's the title, it says, It's Okay to Be the Boss, is giving you permission. It's okay. You don't have to be worried because this is actually good news, as you'll see in our conversation today and in the book, if you read it, and you should. I hope actually one of the first things that you do after this conversation is go on Amazon and purchase this book and read it for yourself and see. But I think today is just like any other time in coffee, where we've got a lot of people entering into the industry who they have leadership experience, maybe in some other industry, which may or may not translate to coffee. They have leadership experience maybe out in places like camps and events, which may or may not translate to coffee. No matter if you have experience in leadership or not, switching contexts means overcoming inertia, and in the land of the unfamiliar, like a coffee shop, and the high emotionality of a lot of our workforce in coffee, just state it plainly, it's more important than ever to have a grip on what it is we are supposed to be doing as leaders. And this is a clear manual and strategy guide, and this insight is all born from one of the longest and maybe still running surveys of management around the world. It's been over 20 years of raw data synthesized into main themes that emerge in the form of this material. Bruce is not just having wild ideas about what it is to be a manager or a leader. He is asking the question through his company, What do managers need? What do staff need leadership to be? And here we have that encapsulated in this book. So I am really excited to present this to you again, and stay tuned afterwards. I'm going to have some more commentary to give you practical advice on application beyond what we talked about in this episode. So without anything else from me, here now is this classic Encore episode with Bruce Tulgan on why it's okay to be the boss. All right, Bruce Tulgan, author of It's Okay to Be the Boss and founder of Rainmaker Thinking. Welcome to Keys to the Shop.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really honored to have you on the show, and I love your book. You probably hear that a lot because it's a bestseller, and it's a small book, but it's really, really effective. It's Okay to Be the Boss is something that it's one of the few books I actually recommend to pretty much anybody that I come across in my industry or otherwise who's a manager of any type. We use it in our stores as required reading and kind of a guidebook, and it's been incredibly helpful.
Well, thank you so much. That means the world to me. I wish I made all that stuff up, but it comes from what is now 24 years of research. So I think, it resonates because it's based on the real challenges of real managers in the real world.
Yeah. And it's one of the things I think about this book, which is it's almost jarring in a sense. It's refreshing and jarring at the same time because there's so much common sense. And like you said, real world research backing it. It makes sense that that's going to come through the content. But I read it and I just want to just get going doing real management, but also I want to kick myself for not really managing the way that I should have been all of these years.
Well, I think most leaders and managers, they move into positions of supervisory responsibility because they're good at their job. They've demonstrated a commitment to their business and maybe the industry. They've shown a lot of responsibility and initiative. They get put in charge of operations, and with operations go people. And, maybe we teach them how to do a little extra paperwork, but nobody ever teaches them how to do the people work. And then every so often we give them a book or send them to a seminar. But a lot of those books and seminars are focused on, what I call aspirational leadership. It's, wouldn't it be great if, you could just leave people alone and they manage themselves, and we treat everybody exactly the same, and that's the best way, and we all just have personal friendships and the work takes care of itself. It's just that in the real world that doesn't work.
Right. And we end up having a lot of fires to put out as a result of that. And there's content in your book that we're going to go over that gets into some of that. I'm interested, though, earlier you were saying that a lot of the research and your research at Rainmaker Thinking is what precipitated this book and probably all of your writings. I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about that research and how it kind of informed your writing of this book?
Yeah, everything we do is based on in-depth interview research. I started doing in-depth interviews by accident back in the early 90s when I was an unhappy lawyer. And those turned into my first book back in the early 90s was Managing Generation X. And we've kept doing those interviews ever since. So for 24 years now, we've been doing in-depth interviews with employees and managers in organizations of all shapes and sizes. More than 500,000 people have participated in our research over a 24-year period.
Wow.
Some of these interviews go on and on and on. They're longitudinal interviews, so we stay in touch with people over time. But in-depth interviews are the lifeblood of all of our content. The question we ask managers every single day is, what is the hardest thing for you about managing people? And we've asked more than 300,000 managers that question, and tens of thousands of managers we've stayed in dialogue with for over 10 years. So we've looked at management practices of 400 different organizations. We've looked at internal survey data from companies representing millions of respondents. So I try to stick very close to the research because, that's where I get all my content. In real life, I've never really had a job. I was a lawyer for 428 days, but that hardly counts. So I think I have the advantage of having objectivity, but really everything we do now comes from 24 years of research.
So the research is very robust on all of these books, and It's Okay to Be the Boss. When I show people the book, It's kind of a captivating title. It makes people think, well, what am I about to read? And having it on the desk. In fact, you reference this in the book. Like, if you're a manager and you have this book on your desk, people are going to start to wonder what's going on.
Yeah, for a while we had buttons. It's okay to be the boss buttons. And, some people would wear them. Some people would put them on their bulletin board. A lot of people would say, I'm going to wear this at home so my spouse gets the idea.
Oh, no. I'll have to reference their research in a later date and see how that went.
Exactly.
Yeah, the title kind of also suggests that many of us are not okay with being the boss. Like, we're afraid of it. Maybe we're playing light and kind of sorry for being the boss in a way. And it fleshes out in our management, or lack thereof, I guess, in different ways. And you give it an umbrella term in the book in the beginning called undermanagement. In the front of the book says, fight the undermanagement epidemic. I wonder, what is undermanagement, and what is it that we're doing that's undermanaging?
So a number of years ago, we began to tap into this phenomenon, undermanagement, in our research. And what we found over and over again was that leaders, managers, and supervisors at all levels spend a lot of time leading, managing, and supervising. They just do it in a relatively unstructured way, lacking in sufficient substance. This is what we call undermanagement, a lack of high structure, high substance communication, focused on making expectations clear, focused on giving people meaningful feedback about where they stand in relation to expectations, focused on talking through resource needs, and giving people regular credit and recognition and reward. So what we found was managers touch base with their people a lot. How's everything going? Is everything on track? Any problems I should know about? But they're just touching base. Managers and employees interrupt each other all day long. This is hey, my door is always open. Let me know if you need me. But it leads to management by interruption. And nobody's at their best when they're interrupting. And then we see each other on email, we see each other in meetings, but what happens is we don't dig down and plan the work. We don't look around short corners. We don't troubleshoot. We don't make sure that people know exactly what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. Are they following best practices? We don't identify small problems before they turn into big problems. We don't give enough course-correcting feedback. We don't talk through, hey, what happens if you don't have time to do everything today? So this leads to a lot of managers feel like they're in dialogue with their people, but they're undermanaging. And what happens is problems hide below the radar. So there are 8 costs of undermanagement. Problems occur that never had to occur. Problems get out of control that could have been solved easily. Resources are squandered. People go in the wrong direction for days, weeks, or months on end without realizing it. Low performers hide out and collect paychecks. Mediocre performers start thinking they're high performers. High performers get frustrated and think about leaving. And managers end up doing tasks that should have been delegated to someone else. So this is what we call undermanagement. And it is the problem that hides in plain sight in almost every workplace. That's why we say fight the undermanagement epidemic. And the medicine is high structure, high substance communication.
So how do we know that we are in the midst of an undermanagement epidemic within our establishments? Is it just looking for those 8 things that you just described? We just have to take a hard look at our own practices and be honest with ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's an undermanagement epidemic throughout the workplace. So chances are most leaders and managers have room to improve the structure and substance of their management dialogues. But you can investigate this from the front end or the back end. When we go in to do a management practices assessment to try to help organizations figure out where is their management culture today, you can look from the front end or the back end. The front end is, are managers following the discipline of regular structured dialogue? That means not just team meetings, but team meetings for what team meetings are good for. And then one-on-ones. The discipline is the structured one-on-one focused on expectation setting, problem solving, troubleshooting, feedback, focused on development and growth, focused on planning and execution. So are you having regular one-on-ones with your direct reports that go beyond tag. How's everything going? Everything on track? Any problems I should know about? Because those questions are just invitations to wrap up the conversation quickly. How's everything going? What I'm looking for there is fine. Everything on track? What I'm looking for there is yes. Any problems I should know about? What I'm looking for there is you'll take care of it before I have to worry about it, right? And then, hey, let me know if you need me, and we interrupt each other all day long. So one way to evaluate is to look from the front end. Is there a regular discipline of structured dialogue? That's sort of like, does everyone take a walk every day and eat their vegetables? You can also look from the back end. And those 8 consequences that I mentioned, those are almost always evidence of undermanagement. And the good news is that if you have unnecessary problems that should be solved easily, that get out of control, resources not well planned that are getting squandered, people not following best practices, low performers hiding out, mediocre performers thinking they're high performers being the most likely to be frustrated and think about leaving, managers saying they have a hard time delegating. If you have any combination of those 8 consequences, 9 out of 10 times, they can be made much better through regular, structured, high substance, coaching style management dialogue.
Wow. I'm really listening to this thinking about my industry in coffee bars, where in the service sector of the industry. So, and I'm thinking basically, if you breathe air, you probably are undermanaging in some form. In the book, you talk about myths that we believe that prevent us from acting in common sense ways that would prevent us from undermanaging and cause us to actually have that high structure, high value time with our employees. What are some of the most pernicious myths that we believe that keep us from managing properly?
The number one myth is the myth of empowerment. And the myth is not that you should empower people. Of course you should empower people. The myth is that somehow the way to empower people is to leave them alone to manage themselves. The myth is that somehow if you leave people alone, then they'll do their best work. But that's only true on that planet where everyone gets a trophy. Here on planet Earth, most people do their best work when they have guidance, direction, support, and coaching from a more experienced person. So sink or swim is not empowerment. It's negligence. Reinvent the wheel is not empowerment. It's negligence. Hey, do it however you think it should be done, but it's really not up to you. Is not empowerment. Real empowerment is hard work. Real empowerment requires a manager teaching and coaching, not just mentioning broad performance standards, but also spelling out step-by-step instructions, concrete expectations, concrete actions that people can take. So I think that is the number one thing that gets in the way, especially nowadays. Like, oh, well, I shouldn't have to hold everybody's hand and tell everybody how to do their job. Well, really? Because why wouldn't you provide guidance, direction, and support? That's really what that is. Guiding, directing, supporting. I think that's the number one myth. And, as you know, in the book, I go through 7 myths. The number 2 myth is the myth of fairness. That myth is that the way to be fair is to treat everybody exactly the same. That's only fair if you're running a commune. In the workplace, the way to be fair is to do more for some people and less for others based on what they deserve. The number 3 myth, and this you see in a lot of collegial type environments like a coffee bar, where people become friendly with each other. They spend a lot of time together. You may have regulars, but a lot of customers are just passing through. And so a lot of managers fall into what we call false nice guy syndrome, or what I like to say, the myth of the jerk boss, that if I'm a strong coaching style manager who focuses on getting a lot more work done very well, very fast all day long, and reducing errors and adding value every step of the way, that maybe people won't like me. Maybe my employees will think I'm a jerk. Whereas the reality is nobody needs a weak leader. The only people who want weak leaders are the ones who are hiding out and collecting a paycheck. The number 4 myth is the myth that, hey, if you're strong, you're going to have a lot of difficult confrontations. But the reality is that what's missing in most workplaces is the boring conversations. Hey, let's make sure we know what we're going to do today. Let's go over our resource needs. Let's make sure we take action up front to make sure we don't run out of anything. Let's make sure everyone knows what they're doing today so that when we get busy, we move through our customers quickly and deliver for them swiftly. It's the boring conversations up front that are usually missing. And that's how you avoid difficult confrontations. Having a lot more boring conversations is the antidote. The number 5 myth is the myth of, I'm not allowed to do this. HR is going to get me, or I might break a rule. Somebody might sue me. And what I always say is, well, follow the rules, stick to performance and keep track in writing. The number 6 myth is the myth of the natural leader. Maybe I'm just not that good at this. And the good news is practice, you'll get better at it. And finally, the myth of time. I just don't have time. And the answer is you don't have time not to do this, because when you don't manage up front, when you don't provide guidance, direction, support, and coaching up front, you spend all your management time either touching base, which leads to just the feeling that you're managing rather than accomplishing anything, or what you really end up doing is spending most of your management time fighting fires. And by the way, that's probably, if you spend all your management time fighting fires, you're hanging around, everything seems fine, and then all of a sudden it turns out, no, there was a big problem hiding below the radar, then you are in the midst of undermanagement. I always tell managers, remember Smokey the Bear. It's a whole lot easier to prevent a fire than it is to put one out.
We get ourselves into those situations. I'm just thinking in coffee very often because our managers tend to work right alongside with the employees on the line in the bar. And everybody gets really tired and, they fall prey to the amygdala hijack. Everybody's just looking for sustenance and rest after a shift. And so we make excuses. And I bet you as we go through this list that people are just ticking off lots of different things that they identify with. And we're left with this question, what is it that we can do about it? And the book does such a great job of outlining the steps that we can take, starting with what seems like very basic, but is actually very hard to do if you're not already doing it. And that's getting in the habit of managing every day. What does that look like?
Well, it's sort of like nobody has time to get in shape, but then some people work out every day. And you get the time back on the other end. You live longer, but it does take time up front. So what you have to do is you have to start dedicating time up front to regular structured conversations. And it's different in every workplace. So, sometimes it means a quick stand-up meeting at the beginning of a shift. Sometimes it means when people walk in the door, you take them aside and have a 10-minute one-on-one and get them focused on, here's what we're focused on today. Here's what I want you to focus on today. Hey, when there's downtime, here's a list of things I want you to do. Tell me, what do you need from me? That's what the discipline of the one-on-one looks like. But you have to, if you're not in the habit, you're still going to be putting out fires until you dedicate a bunch of time to fire prevention. If you're not in the habit, you're going to have to build the habit of having more meaningful conversations instead of just touching base. If you're not in the habit, you're going to have to get in the habit. And that means usually you have to set aside time every day to have those regular structured conversations. The good news is if you do that for a few weeks, you'll start to get in shape as a leader. People will start to get used to it. And then you start getting your time back. But the way to get started is you're going to have to put in extra time. And I always say to managers, if you listen to this interview and you think, oh, hey, wow, I've been undermanaging. I got to get back to work and start managing immediately. And then you come back and you're like, hey, excuse me, I want to have a one-on-one with you. And then I want to have a one-on-one with you. And then I'm going to have a one-on-one with you. And your people are going to say, oh, great, she listened to that interview. Sit tight. This will blow over. You have to actually take a step back and think, am I really prepared to change? Because it will be a change. And sometimes managers go back and they say, there's a new sheriff in town. Things are going to be different around here. I think managers should first really think, am I prepared to make a big change? And if you're prepared to make a big change, then sit down and look at your schedule, figure out where would it fit? Where would you have time to have these one-on-ones? Do a little planning and then make a list of your people. and think about, for each person, who is this person at work? What do I need from this person? What does this person need from me? What can I help this person get better at? What can I do for this person to help this person be more successful? And then pull the team together and you can say, hey, good news. I'm going to try to be a better manager. Good news. I'm going to try to provide more guidance and direction. I'm going to try to help us all avoid unnecessary problems. I'm going to try to help everyone here do more, better, faster, and earn more. And then explain, I want you to help me. Dialogue is an important word. It's not a one-way street. This has to be a change in the management relationship, in the dialogue. And you need to get employees to participate in it. You want to say, hey, I'm going to try to be a better manager, and I want you to please help me.
Yeah, be honest.
Exactly. Authenticity goes a long way. And then the key is sticking with it. It's having those regular one-on-ones. And if you drop the ball, if you miss a day, it's sort of like, missing a day of taking a walk. You got to get back. You don't just say, I didn't take a walk Wednesday, I'm done. You got to get up Thursday and do better.
So consistency, when we talk about quality of coffee in our industry, we often say that consistency is kind of king. People prefer a mediocre, consistent experience rather than a really great experience on Monday and a bad one on Wednesday. You described something called landscapes, manager landscapes. Could you talk a little bit about that?
The reality is, as soon as you start managing people, you start remembering, what works with one person doesn't always work with another person. I told you at the beginning that the question we've asked hundreds of thousands of managers is, what's the hardest thing for you about managing people? And this is an unprompted question. It's not a multiple choice question. And often people say what the hardest thing for them is everybody's different. What works with one person doesn't work with another person. So customization is the key. We have a very simple tool we recommend for customizing your approach to every management dialogue. And that is 6 questions. And they're very familiar questions. Who, why, what, how, where, when. So the first question is, who is this person? Not who is this person deep inside, but who is this person at work? And if you want to drill down, you say, who is this person when it comes to productivity? Does this person get a lot done? Who is this person when it comes to quality? Does this person make a lot of mistakes or not? Who is this person when it comes to attitude? Who is this person when it comes to self-management? So who is this person at work? And then the next question is, why? Why does this person need you as a leader? Why? What's your goal with this person? What are you trying to help this person get better at? And then what? What is your message with this person right now? Or what questions should you be asking this person? And then how? How is not just in person or on the phone or by email, but how is also what kinds of questions should you ask? Or if you're going to ask questions, should you ask open-ended questions or yes and no questions? If you ask questions, should you ask questions like a cross-examining attorney or questions like an auditor? Or some people, you need to just give them detailed instructions. Some people, how you talk to one person is very different from another. And then where are you going to have these conversations? Are you going to step outside? Are you going to step in the back? Are you going to sit down at a table? And then when? When is a 2-part question too, because it's how often. Some people, you need to coach them every single day. Some people once a week would be enough. Some people twice a day. But when is an important issue as well, because some people, the best time to coach them is before a busy shift or before a busy time, when everyone is so busy and you want to coach them beforehand so they're ready. Some people, the best time to coach them is after the busy period has passed. Some people coach them on their way in the door. Some people coach them on their way out the door. So everybody's different. One of the ways to customize your approach is to ask and answer those questions about every single person. And if you arrange those questions at the top of a page in a horizontal axis, who, why, what, how, where, when, and then in the who column, make a list of your people, and under each name, answer who is this person at work when it comes to productivity, quality, attitude, and self-management. And then for each person, why am I managing this person? What's my goal? What is my message? How should I talk to this person, where and when? And it's a good way to set up your management challenge every day or once a week by going through your people. And at the very least, it's a tool of mindfulness. It gets you focused on your management challenge for the day or the week.
So we have this structure in place where we've written down basically who these people are at work in many different facets. It really leads well into a couple of the other steps and solutions that you have out of the 7, which is to make accountability a real process and track performance, which for us, since we, in our cafe at Sunnergass Coffee in Louisville, where I'm an operations manager, we use the landscapes for our employees, and it helps us look back to see the progress of the conversations that we've been having with them over time. So it helps us with that accountability, and it helps track performance too.
Yeah, I mean, tracking performance is so important. And I think so many leaders get into the trap of they only track bottom line numbers that our systems take care of tracking. So we have that data. So we're always tempted to use it because we have it. But it's often disconnected from the concrete actions within the control of individuals. And then when it comes to individuals, when do we keep score in the workplace specifically about an individual? Well, sometimes it's when they've done something extraordinarily good. But usually it's once you start to have a problem with an employee, then you start keeping score. And I think, why don't we keep score when people are winning? Why don't we keep score every day to help people see how they're doing? I think tracking is the essence of performance improvement. So keeping score, keeping track for people, it helps people keep track of their successes, their progress, how to get better, but also it helps make accountability a real process because it keeps the dialogue going. As you said, it shows the progress of the conversation over time. And it's not just keeping score how you're doing on your expectations, but it's also, hey, let's keep track of our conversation. And then we can see where we started and where we're progressing and how our conversation is developing. And by the way, as a manager, if you keep track in writing, it makes it so much easier to pick up the conversation next time. It makes it so much easier to say, hey, so yesterday we talked about not following your own recipe when it comes to making the coffee. How'd you do? You know, now you've got our recipe memorized now, right? Go ahead, show me. Yesterday we talked about not cursing at customers. So how'd you do yesterday? Did you try out dag nabbit, gee whiz, and golly gosh? Hey, yesterday we talked about you being a little bit early today. And look at that. You showed up 5 minutes early instead of 10 minutes late. Right on. Yesterday we talked about upselling scones. How many scones did you sell yesterday? Yesterday we talked about something you wanted to learn. Yesterday we talked about how you can be a peer leader and influence some of your peers in the workplace. How did that go yesterday? So when you're keeping track, then you also make accountability a positive thing. I always say accountability should not about being imposing punishments on people when they mess up. Accountability is just about getting everyone in the habit of giving an account of their performance on an ongoing basis. Let's keep talking about what we're doing and how we can keep getting better.
And also the people who you're talking to know that you have not only followed through, but you're paying attention, which for somebody who's in a leadership position, gaining rapport with individuals is so important.
Yeah, and it's rapport based on the work. And it's not like, hey, maybe we want to be friends later. But at work, what's going on here is the work. Imagine a professional sports team. They may be friends, but you can be sure what's going on before, during, and after that game is they're practicing, they're focusing on playing their roles, on winning the game. And you're absolutely right that everyone knows when a leader is keeping track, when a leader's all over the details. Everyone knows when a leader is not keeping track. And so when you have the dialogue, when people are in the habit of giving an account, when you're always writing stuff down and then referring back to your notes, that has the effect of, oh, wow, you're serious about this. You're writing it down. Wow, you're writing that down? You must be serious. Ding, 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 ding. Maybe you should be writing it down too.
In previous episodes, we were talking about how baristas can better leverage their performance review. And one of the things is to write down what your boss is telling you to do or what they're saying if they haven't already written it down for you, as a show of taking that seriously. And I have seen so much fruit from the leadership side of things, the managers keeping track of performance. It also helps us reward people who are showing great improvement and also help coaching people who aren't, which is kind of what you're talking about with doing more for some people than for others.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a great point about teaching the employees on their side to own part of this process as well. I wrote a book also called It's Okay to Manage Your Boss, which is the flip side of the equation. And it's teaching people how to own the dialogue, how to keep track for themselves. One of the most powerful self-management tools you can use is getting in the habit of taking notes, using checklists, and making sure you're tracking your own performance. And people should know if you show up a little early, if you stay all day, if you work hard all day, if you do a great job, what do you get? You get to keep working here. And then people should also know if you drag your heels, then there's going to be problems. If you don't do your job, there are going to be problems. Likewise, people should understand, hey, if you go the extra mile, we're going to do more for you. You don't want to work on Thursdays? Well, show me what you got by Wednesday at midnight. You want to bring your dog to work? Well, this is a food establishment. It's going to be hard to work that out. We might not be able to do that for you. You want a little more money? Well, here's what it looks like to go the extra mile. Making it clear to people how they can go the extra mile and earn more. That is a way to drive discretionary effort and make the high performers feel like there's a reason to be a high performer.
Yeah, and you're also giving them a track of advancement that is not secret to some people and communicated to others. It's communicated to everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to be the kind of leader who, when people get rewarded, nobody wonders why. If you manage everybody this way, when somebody gets special rewards, everybody knows, oh, well, that person really must have earned it.
So one of the last things here out of the 7 solutions that you offer in the book is something we've already touched on, and it's what all of these steps that we've been discussing actually do, and that's help us solve small problems before they become big ones. I was thinking that some of the reasons why we don't do that may be because caffeine has a negative impact on short-term memory. We just forget to do it. But by employing these things, we can solve small problems in our workplace before they become really big ones. What are some examples that you've seen where big problems could have been sort of solved before they blew up?
The examples are all over the map. It's so often the case that small problems are hiding just below the radar. And a lot of times, people don't even realize it, right? So if you don't have a drill down conversation with people about the resources they're going to need today, then you might not find out, oh, we need more of this, or more of that, more of this. If you don't talk through with somebody exactly what steps they're following, hey, let's go over the checklist again. You say, oh, you didn't even realize, you thought you were doing it right, but you're following the wrong steps. You have so many issues that hide below the radar. Somebody might come in a little bit late every other day and think they have an understanding and not realize it's driving the manager crazy. Or you might have conflict on the team, a clique forming, a ringleader emerging. The people who don't like each other, don't like working with each other. There are so many issues that hide just below the radar that when the manager leaves, people stop cleaning up. And over the course of a shift, the space becomes more and more messy and covered in debris because nobody has said up front, hey, we need to have somebody go out and clean up every 20 minutes during a busy shift. The examples are endless. And what happens is if you plan up front, you clear the brush, you make sure that everyone's observing the fire code. It's fire prevention 101. So that's what I call it. It's if you don't prevent the fire, you're going to spend a lot of time putting out fires later.
So now that we have kind of a taste of what we're up against and some of the solutions that we can employ, where would you recommend a manager start?
Well, if you go to our website, rainmakerthinking.com, there's a lot of free information, a lot of free resources. We have a news feed where we run articles that are free and interviews that are free. So that's where I always recommend people start. My publisher's always happy when people buy the book at Amazon or whatever. And, I'm just an email away at brucet@rainmakerthinking.com or on Twitter. But look, my advice is very simple. My advice is take a walk every day and eat your vegetables. You have to interrogate your own reality. Look at yourself. Do a time log. When are you spending your time managing? Are you just touching base and interrupting and firefighting? Or are you putting in the discipline of regular structure? The way most managers manage, it'd be like if you say, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to start taking the stairs instead of the elevator. But yeah, that's not enough to really get in shape. And then every 5 weeks, you end up taking a 10-mile run and you really hurt yourself. So, you got to take a walk every day. You got to eat your vegetables. Step 1, set aside the time every day. Step 2, think about your people. Step 3, talk to your people. Good news. I'm going to be a better manager. I want you to help me. Step 4, start having those one-on-ones.
This conversation has been fantastic, and I definitely recommend people go out there and buy the book. We'll also have a link to Amazon on our website where your show will be, on keystotheshop.com, where people can go buy that book, and then go to your website and look at all the research, too. You've got a ton of information on there. A lot of other books, too. I'm halfway through the 27 problems that managers face, and that's also a fantastic book.
Oh, thank you. That's the sequel.
I figured it kind of left off where the first one ended, and so I'm really thankful for that.
I'm honored to be on your show, and thank you so much for including me, and please use this as a resource anytime.
Okay, everyone. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that episode. Thank you so much for listening through, and I do hope that you will buy this book. It's okay to be the boss. Check out the show notes because we have other episodes with Bruce that I would love for you to listen to. The other books like The Art of Being Indispensable at Work, which is episode 226, or the episode called 27 Challenges Managers Face. Episode 141 is another one to check out right after this one. But I want to make some notes here in terms of application, because one of the things that happens, and this is common in podcast world, we accumulate such a massive quantity of idea calories. We're not exercising very much, but we're taking in a lot of calories, and that doesn't really end up that great in terms of overall health. The first thing that we should do is figure out how, once we're starting to do this, what we're going to do with the information. When we read the book and we hear these good ideas, these are really good ideas, and I love it. As a podcaster, I love you listening to the show. I even more so love to hear that you have taken time to apply something that really stood out and resonated. And so I would encourage you to take a look at your schedule. Take a look at what you're doing this coming week and next week, and carve out some time. We call it time chunking. You can call it categories, but really it's a matter of scheduling. And this is something I'm pretty sure that owners are very bad at, is scheduling themselves. We've mentioned this on the show before, like your own job description and tasks for the week. You might have an extraordinarily long bullet point list of things, but it's going to be necessary for you to put together what you're doing each day of the week on a weekly basis. Now take your schedule and figure out when during that week you're going to take the information that you just learned, whatever concept it was, whether we're talking about management landscapes or any other concept, and apply it. Take some time and do the work a little bit at a time until it is complete, and have patience in the process. That's the one thing about having a book like this, or any book, is that the idea generates a lot of energy. The energy creates urgency. The urgency creates reckless action, and that reckless action kind of submarines our chance of seeing that good information do good in our business. So the right approach, I think, is once you take that information, have patience with it. Give yourself a month or two, or more even, depending on how big the business is and how busy you are, to faithfully and regularly chip away at creating these structures, these systems, these mindsets. And one thing that I would suggest also, if you are an owner or an operations manager that has a team of other leaders that you are tasked with leading, then it might be a good idea to have a regular reading session with this book, It's Okay to Be the Boss, with the caveat that is, you don't go rogue. Don't go applying these things because you really like it and said, I tried it out on Thursday and it worked. Because there's already too much confusion in the work we do because everyone's got, 6 bosses in some ways. They're always looking to the boss, the manager, the shift lead, and the trainer, and they're just trying to survive the shift. We need to have a unified front. And that unified front has to be, as bosses, as people who possess this authority, the best use of this for the sake of other people's benefit is to be united in what we decide to do going forward. So as you read, it's more about listening to what's being said and then figuring out what applies to your business most. Then you can all collectively decide what we're going to do with this information. And you will collectively apply it, gain feedback for how it's going, and then continue on. Maybe what the top 5 ideas are of this book, go ahead and list those out for your company. And I would almost say distrust your first impressions. Not so much as to say that it's wrong, but listening often means eschewing assumption. So I could be wrong. Let's keep hearing. That sounds really good. Let's keep listening. Let's keep reading. And at the end, you say, yeah, that really is something that we need. And I will take time to observe and reflect on who I am at work, what I am doing, and what is our culture like also. One thing that I do in my consulting is I do cafe assessments. And I've done many of them this year where I will go to your coffee shop and this is not a plug for this, but I'm just saying because it fits, I will listen and I will be there from morning to night, watching, interviewing people, making notes, just from an outside perspective, what is truly happening here with the hospitality, the quality, the operations, the systems, and all this stuff. And afterwards, we will do some coaching and we'll have a lot of great conversations, hours of conversations, and they're really deep and great. And we'll do coaching afterwards to kind of walk through what the first priorities are that, here's the key, have emerged. They have emerged from what? From observation, from listening. I told a client recently when I did this, because they wanted to know how things were going after like the first half day, I said, well, things are going good. In terms of good, I meant basically it's fine, but I'm not sure. And the reason I said I'm not sure is because actually I just need to be as neutral as possible to take in the information and say, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? So we're asking questions. We're curious. That's when the theme starts to emerge as we start to listen to our business. And then the things that stand out on the page of a book, like It's Okay to Be the Boss, that becomes way more effective because now you're not only listening to an author, you're listening to yourself. You're listening to others, especially, and you're listening to the business, and you can see where the on-ramp is for the right information. So that's something you should probably do with all things that you consume, and something I should do as well. So kind of preaching to myself here. But after this episode, again, read the book, employ that strategy. I think you're going to find it very rewarding. Always happy to have Bruce on the show. Go to rainmakerthinking.com for more information about his company, what he does, and you can find these books anywhere fine books are sold. So if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's episode, of course, always email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. If you're interested in Keys to the Shop consulting, working with me one-on-one to do coaching, cafe assessments, and to help you build and continue to run a profitable, joy-filled, and fulfilling coffee shop, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. And don't forget to follow Keys to the Shop @Keys to the Shop on Instagram. You can DM me there as well. And let me know if you're interested in key holder coaching groups. Key holder coaching groups are happening again. First round was now. We have our first cohort of 6 people. We're all in it. We are conversing and helping each other with specific issues that come up and really focusing on bettering each other as professionals, and each person's business benefits from the other person's insights. And this coaching group model is such a powerful one. I would love to include you in that for the new round coming up next year in March or so. There is going to be an email sent to people who have signed up ahead of time before applications open publicly. So if you want to be on that list, go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. And with that, that is the end of the show, everyone. I appreciate you all taking the time to listen, as always. Subscribe to the show, share these episodes, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.